Alan, and I would really like to publicly once again thank Mr. Michael Pincer and thank also Air Greenland and of course the U.S. Embassy and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for being really such a gracious host and truly showcased Greenland in a world-class way. I'm very delighted to be here, and it's a very humbling experience, and I'd like to thank all of you also for the wonderful presentations that preceded on how do we sell Greenland globally, or maybe a better word is how to market Greenland globally. So what I'm going to talk about today is nation branding and basically sustainable tourism. Obviously, sustainable tourism is really critical to Greenland. So how can we position Greenland as a sustainable tourism destination? But also, I'm going to anchor on the issue of the role of cultural diplomacy. Is there a role for cultural diplomacy to play for different key players in different sectors here? So let me start. I'm going to start off by sharing some best practices on that topic, how other nations have positioned themselves strategically as a tourist destinations or capitalized on public diplomacy and the role of public diplomacy in showcasing their nation brands. And then I'm going to close up actually from where Alan started here and bring that home to us and how that all relates to Greenland. So we'll start off first with some case studies on best practices on nation branding. But before I get started on that, what are the key global trends that are driving or piquing, if you will, interest in nation branding? There are a lot of things going on now in the global community that are really changing the way we think about nation branding and why nation branding is becoming very important. Nations are really competing against each other. They're very much as they are cooperating, but they are also fiercely competing over media attention, competing over public policy attention, competing over resources. So to what extent the nation branding concept can play a role here? We are also challenged by a number of issues here, political upheavals, violence, economic crisis. We saw more recently how transatlantic relationships were put on hold because of volcanic ash. So natural resources can have a major effect as a result of that as well. Global media is playing a major role, and we have seen really three wonderful case studies from Germany, the US, and the UK in how media can play a role in showcasing, again, the national or the nation brand. Media, however, can be unfair in its coverage. And I've noticed some of you have said, well, there is nothing I can do about it. This is how the events have been unfolding, and we can influence media to an extent, but sometimes something happens and can have a severe negative or adverse effect on us. And sometimes people will say it's unfair, and it can be totally unfair, but it just happens to us. So how can we deal with it? And why building a strong nation brand can defy some of these perhaps unfair coverages by the media. And oftentimes media is really lusting for negative stories. They never say it's sunshine in Greenland. What's new? Well, although that can be bad news if it's sunshine in Greenland. So to what extent we can influence media, and to what extent we can deal with media messages in that respect. So how can how can we turn bad news around, and how can we deal with bad news from a nation branding perspective? How can we shape these messages, and how can we respond to these messages? How can we influence public opinion? Because public opinion influences public policy. Yeah? And if we have to have a share on that influence, we have to have a stronger nation brand as a result of that. So what is nation branding? Yeah? We have been really throwing that concept and flirting with it. And here is this, and this will help the nation brand, and that, and here is that, and here is how that's going to help the nation brand in here. So what is that mysterious concept called nation branding? Nation branding is about building a sustainable differential advantage that defies existing or pre-existing, this is how I define it, existing or pre-existing national or regional stereotypes. Whether these stereotypes are accurate, whether these stereotypes are representative or not, how can we deal with these stereotypes? How can we defy all odds that relate to these stereotypes? How can we build a sustainable differential advantage, meaning what makes my nation brand different? Yes, I want to make people aware that I exist, and these are the attributes and the qualities of what I have, but I also want to make sure that people know that Greenland is not Iceland. I was flying in a flight, and I was seated next to actually a professor at MIT, without revealing identity here, and she, a PhD from Harvard, she taught at Chicago, University of Chicago, a very influential scientist. And we started talking, where are you going, that sort of thing, and I told her I'm going to Greenland. And she said, oh, that's terrible ash that came out of there. And I said, no, that's not Greenland, that's Iceland. And then she said, oh, I thought they are the same. I said, no, Greenland is different than Iceland. She said, well, Greenland is that an island next to Iceland? I said, it's a very huge island, and it's really not next to Iceland, it's further away from Iceland. We had to hold the travel section of the map in order to show her where Greenland, and I could see the look on her face when she saw this massive, land. She said, oh, wow, that's as big as Europe. I said, yeah. And, so it's really the world best kept secret in that respect. We know we are passionate about Greenland because you're Greenlanders, or we are friends of Greenland, so we know Greenland. But there is a 99% of people out there that, forgive me, don't even know where Greenland is. So yes, we want to make sure that they are aware of Greenland, but also we want to make sure that they are aware about the unique attributes of Greenland and what makes Greenland a different brand, different than Iceland perhaps. So in that context, a nation brand is basically how to identify strategically here. We have to have a strategy and a vision and a mission in order to make sure that everything that we do fall into place in helping that strategy, at the end of the day here. So how do we do it? Okay, nations are strategically managing their brand stature over a period of time and using integrated marketing communications, and we have seen wonderful case examples in how marketing communication and public relation initiatives can be very helpful in strengthening the nation brand in that respect. So I'm going to share with you some examples here of what I call them best practices. Basically the countries that have been engaged in nation branding initiatives for a period of time here. I'm going to talk about Jordan, shed some light on Switzerland, Dubai, Egypt, Singapore, South Africa, Australia, and Sweden more recently with the House of Sweden initiative that they have been doing in Washington, D.C. A lot of good work in that respect as it relates to public diplomacy here. So when we say nation brand, who is in charge of the nation brand? Who's in charge of the nation brand? Any thoughts? Who's in charge of the nation brand? Is it the PR agency? Is it the Ministry of Foreign Affairs? Is it Air Greenland? Who is in charge with the nation brand, in your humble opinion?
Any stakeholder who has an interest in...
There are multiple stakeholders. Who are these stakeholders? Who are these stakeholders?
Well, Branding Greenland is a perfect example of
The
that.
board,
You've
perhaps,
got government,
of Brand
tourism.
Greenland. So you have government, you have tourism,
Yeah.
what else? NGOs? I don't know to what extent NGOs
No,
are
you have
involved in.
major, the largest employer in Greenland is part of Royal Greenland, Branding Greenland.
Okay.
The transport, the sort of the main transport service is part of
Part
Branding
of that.
Greenland.
Okay.
So, there are a number of agencies involved.
So
but
a lot
actually
of
it's
key
a perfect
stakeholders
example of
involved.
who is in charge.
So what are we talking about here? Who is in charge of the brand then? No? Who's in charge of the brand? There are key stakeholders, but who's in charge of the brand? We are going to address what is the dilemma if there is a brand without somebody in charge of. We are going to address that, and why we need to have somebody in charge of the brand. So it is the public sector have a role in that, it is the civil society have a role in that, and definitely the private sector has a major stakeholder in that as well. Okay, let's look into scenarios here with negative nation branding experiences here. Negative nation branding experiences where there is no ownership of that, and there is no board, and everybody, and there are some examples of world-class cases where everybody playing a role. Well, the Ministry of Commerce is doing something, the Minister of Industry is doing something, the Minister of Tourism is doing something, the Foreign Ministry is doing something, and I'm not saying that's happening here, I'm saying that's happening elsewhere. As a matter of fact, you are a model example of how the nation brand can be under control, because it's a relatively small in size. When you get in a big, large-scale operations, some countries. How many of you have watched the movie Borat? Okay, you know, if you are from Kazakhstan, and I trust none of you are from Kazakhstan, you will be very depressed to hear about that, because if that movie happens to any other country, they will be equally depressed, because believe it or not, the movie Borat was never filmed in Kazakhstan. Where was it filmed?
United States.
Not even in the United States. Where?
UK.
Not in the UK. No, the shots of the Kazi shots, the villager that came from Kazakhstan and all of that. Romania, believe it or not. It's a Romanian village, and they call it Kazakhstan, okay? Very unfair to the Kazi people, okay? So how do you feel about having Borat brand your nation brand? How do you like that? Very risky. He was shunned from entering Kazakhstan, by the way. And if I was from the Kazi government, and if I was an advisor to the Kazi government on nation branding initiatives, I would have said, that's the first one you want to invite over. Invite that guy over. Change his mind, as opposed to shunning him and making him the media spotlight here, because everybody is now talking about, you know, why is they are shunning him, you know, so it becomes rather to your disadvantage. So do you have a crisis management team as part of your nation brand or not? When things go wrong, do you have a contingency plan for your nation brand or not? Because we always assume that things are going to be positive with nation brand. But with nation brand, remember, the nation branding initiative is not only to highlight the positive, but also to defy negative stereotypes. The key for nation branding here is perception equals value. It's not how I see myself. And that's the thing about branding nations that is different than branding products and services. Emotions are so high when it comes to a nation brand. So when I'm sure our emotions here in this room as Greenlanders, emotions are very high. Yeah? It's not about a beverage, it's not about a bottled water, it's about my nation, it's about my sovereignty, it's about my existence, it's not about my bride. As I was talking to one of the friends that I really feel said that the nation brand is really a representation of who I am and why do I exist or why do I want to be. Yeah? So nation brand is so powerful. Huh? So let's be very careful in chartering a course for nation branding initiatives, because if anything goes wrong, it's very hard to retract back and heal wounds and re-energize and retroop, and perceptions are therefore very important. So what makes the nation brand concept happen? No? What we call it nation branding tangibles and intangibles. And I think the beautiful case studies that we have looked at have really tackled a lot of the tangibles and the intangibles in varying degrees, as we saw from the presentations here. The nation brand tangibles include the country name, the logo, the symbols, the slogans, the more we put these logos out there, the associations, the map, all of that, so people would know where do we exist and where are we and what associations would they think of when they hear, again, the name Greenland. What comes to mind? So we can defy stereotypes and we can reinforce, again, good imageries here. We are talking about the culture, the nature, the people, the infrastructure. All of these are very important. Then a very important aspect that oftentimes not emphasized in nation branding initiatives are the intangibles, because intangibles are as powerful as the tangible experiences. Intangibles, personality. We have to agree on what personality that we are trying to project for that brand. Okay? Yes, nations have personalities. Nations have personas, believe it or not. We need to think, envision what that persona is and what type of people will rally around that persona image that we are trying to project. So personas of nations can be friendly or hostile. Well, there are countries that are hostile, believe it or not. Okay? And for them to change from hostile to friendly, it requires major changes here. The reputation here, is it a tourist trap? Is it corrupt? Is it unsafe? All of these are aspects that we need to really craft around the personality and regional affiliation. What part of the region of the world are we part of? Because the world now is organized into communities, believe it or not. What part of the world are we? Where are we? Where do we stand? So very important here. I'm going to share with you a number of nation branding initiatives here, and we are going to show what the slogans and what are the tangibles and intangible attributes and assets that represent each one of these nation brands. But you will see them focusing on what I call them the three F's here of the nation brand: the fun, the fantasy, and the feeling. Okay? Now, let's debate on what aspect of fun, fantasy, and feeling we want to emphasize as part of our nation brand, or do we want to charter, a new course, maybe start a new F out of a result of that. Jordan, for example, this is their logo. And by the way, this came about as a result of a lot of agency work to come up with a logo that depicts both the Arabic calligraphy to the left and to the right and the English word of Jordan, because they wanted not to just show the Arabic name, but also they wanted to show the English name, so people have so the brand slogan here: discover the kingdom of treasure, and capitalizing on fantasy. Brazil, dynamic, sensational, fun, exciting. Barbados, just beyond your imagination, discover, dream, enjoy. So they're all fantasy related because of this is how the way they are, fantasy driven, if you will. Poland, let's meet in Poland. I hope it's not now let's fly together out of Poland. Terrible joke. Fantasy. Spain, a very popular example of how really Spain, the campaign on, again, Smile, You're in Spain, have been remarkable. As a matter of fact, the Italians now trying to copy that and see how can we do what Spain have done with their campaign here. Dubai, and I've done some work with the Dubai DTCM, the Dubai Department of Commerce, Tourism and Commerce there. It's very interesting, Dubai, the bold letters in English, but also the heart shape. The heart shape, it's Arabic calligraphy for the word Dubai, in the shape of a heart. So it still maintains, for an Arabic speaker can see Dubai here, but for an English speaker can see a heart. Okay? I guess find your love in Dubai, whatever it is. And the fun and exciting, and again, definitely Dubai. And Dubai really is a remarkable case. Here is a fishing village in the middle of the desert, nothing around. And 25 years later, it is more recognized. And by the way, Dubai is not a country, by the way. Yeah? Dubai is a city. A lot of people don't know that. So I was returning, I go there once a year, I have a program that I run there, and I was returning and I went to my bank to do the usual banking activity when you you return after a big trip, and I walk into the bank, so you know, Bank of America now, the branch manager will be standing, "How are you, sir? Good morning. You know, how's your vacation? How's your Christmas? How's your holiday?" He said, and I said, "It was fun. What did you do? Did you do anything special?" I said, "Yeah, I was overseas." "Where were you?" And I said, "I was in Dubai." He said, "Oh, that marvelous Mediterranean island. My wife loves to shop there." And I said, "Excuse me, Mediterranean? It's not in the Mediterranean island. It's not even an island." So it's very interesting how really the image of the country, of the city, have surpassed the image of the country, which is the UAE. A lot of people don't know that Dubai is in UAE. What is UAE? Where is UAE? Yeah? Okay, but just people know that Dubai is such an exciting place. It got to be an island. It got to be in the Mediterranean. Okay. Egypt. Again here, back to Egypt. I'm involved in rebranding initiative, rebranding major campaign that we are doing here in Egypt here. As a matter of fact, nothing compares, it says here, nothing compares focusing on fantasy and feelings, but basically, you know, if you look at this, this is Sun Ra, you know, the god of the sun, you know, bringing back the ancient Egyptian civilization and all of that. But a lot of people saying, well, wait a minute, that Egypt more than just monuments. Egypt is not the pyramids anymore. And we found from research a very interesting thing, that by focusing only on the pyramids, we are not encouraging repeat tourism. How many times do you want to see the pyramids in your lifetime? One time. I've seen the pyramids. That's it. Why would I go back again? I have pictures and memories to share. But we said, we want to encourage repeat tourism. Therefore, we are launching a new campaign, Egypt is more than monuments. Yes, if you want the monuments, they are there. Go and see the pyramids. But you got to experience diving in the Red Sea, because it's unsurpassed. And by the way, Germans fly like crazy. Daily flights from Frankfurt to Hurghada and Sharm el-Sheikh, daily flights. I feel like a German village there. Lots of Germans, Swiss, you know, they go there because of the diving. You can go and dive every year, but you are not going to go and see the pyramids every year. You see what I mean? And that's why we are diversifying it from a monumental ancient history focus to beyond monuments focus, in order to get into repeat tourism that is very important.
Can I just ask one
yeah,
thing?
Please.
Because
yeah,
these brand slogans that you have, these are actually tourism. These are tourist slogans.
Right.
How does that differentiate?
Because I thought this is a tourism gathering, so I focus on tourism.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, how
Right.
does that differentiate between the nation brand that you've just
Right.
been talking about? Because this is
Tourism.
these are you know, appealing to people to come in,
Right.
which is not necessarily the same thing as a nation's brand, is it?
Right. Well, because of tourism, a major aspect for Egypt and and that's the thing. I mean, you are bringing a very good point. You are bringing an excellent point. So, is the nation brand is only about tourism? Well, if you are a major tourist destination and your economy is dependent on tourism, then tourism is a big driver.
I agree.
Because when
Yeah.
tourists come, they buy goods.
Yes.
They consider if they repeat tourists, like the Germans, they may consider buying a condo next time instead of staying in a hotel every winter. So they are revitalizing an investment and so on. So we are looking at tourism not as a destination in itself, but as driving of the wheel of development, if you will. But you have a very good point here that it's not all about tourism. And where is the trade piece of it? Where is the investment and promotion piece of it? And where is all of that? Do we need, therefore, for a nation brand, do we need a brand architecture that includes all these aspects? And there are examples like Mexico that have done that. Okay? the way I promote tourism to Mexico is different than I would promote investment and foreign direct investment in Mexico, or promote convention and trade travel to Mexico. So with a nation brand, and this is something perhaps in the round table, with a nation brand will be broader, and then we have a portfolio, if you will, of a brand architecture that includes the tourists sub-brand, the trade sub-brand, the public diplomacy sub-brand, and so on. And how do we synchronize between these two, components of the brand? It's a strategic question becomes, or are we going to anchor on tourism, like Egypt is doing, anchoring in tourism, and then everything would fall into place, one would assume. So it's something strategic that we need to brainstorm. I'm just sharing with you what these countries have done, and let's bring that to table, open the dialogue, and see what is right for Greenland. Do we go with a tourism driver, or do we anchor it around a broader, perhaps, nation brand proposition, where there is a brand architecture that includes the tourism sector, the commerce and international trade, and so on. No?
Yeah.
So let's open that for discussion, but you're raising an excellent point. Okay, I'm gonna share more on Australia in just a minute, but they launched a new campaign recently. It's called Come Walkabout, and we are gonna talk about that campaign and how unique and how successful that campaign have been for Australia. So is your nation brand character here, the personality, back to the intangible attributes that we were talking about of the nation brand? What are these character aspects that you want to focus on? No? Friendliness, Canada and Australia; excitement, Spain and Egypt; competence, Germany and Japan; sophisticated, the US and UAE, where Dubai is, in case you don't know; ruggedness, Brazil, South Africa; or exotic, perhaps, Mexico and Morocco. Where is, again, this is something for us to debate. What personality do we like to perhaps position Greenland in? No? I see Greenland, and I'm talking about here my personal experience, since this is my first trip to Greenland. I really believe Greenland is appealing to the pioneering experience. Truly, Greenland is pioneering in that respect. Unlike any other experience that I have had as a traveler, and I've been to about 35 countries, nothing like I've seen here. Okay, yeah? So that pioneering nature, what makes it pioneering? And what are the personality traits of the pioneering traveler that we want to attract, in order to align a pioneering experience and a pioneering persona, if we will, that we are projecting for the brand with the pioneers that we are trying to attract. They got to be pioneers for them to fly hopping like that, in order to get to that place where they want to immerse themselves in a unique experience here that, unlike any other experience, they got to be pioneering in that respect. So who are they? Yeah? And how can we go over after that? What travel magazines do they read? What websites do you look at? All of that. We need to really draw a nice persona profile of that pioneering nature of that. And that pioneering nature, by the way, crosses age groups. It's not just seniors anymore. Yes, the seniors have the money, but you will get some, college kid that is pioneering enough that they may save a lot of money and deprive themselves from buying their dream car in order to go to a destination like this. And that is pioneering, because they are aspiring to have that pioneering experience be part of them. So pioneering, what other countries that have projected this pioneering persona? Maybe we are at, maybe we dominate that persona or that segment. Just a thought. So what is a nation branding characteristics? And I'm going to showcase a case here on Australia here and their campaign, Come Walkabout. So, any of you familiar with the Come Walkabout campaign? Okay. Okay, let's look at Australia, and I'm not necessarily trying to compare Australia with Greenland, because there is no way of comparison because of the scale, the size, and all of that. But I think there could be some benefits. One thing that we have in common between the two are both of them are experience-based travel experiences. They are intense travel experiences. How many of you have been to Australia? Okay, good. I've been to Australia too. Spent 3 weeks there. So again, what is your nation brand character here? A very diversified portfolio here, an amazing experience, from whale watching to climbing the Sydney Bridge. You didn't climb the Sydney Bridge, Sarah?
I did.
You did? Oh, okay. Exhilarating, nature and wildlife, sports, you name it. The Aborigines, did you eat kangaroo meat?
I've been.
Oh, okay, you're really.
I have turned up. I do go to Australia once every 2 years.
You
so
do?
I know
Oh, you're
quite
frequent.
well.
Okay, okay, good, good. So, arts and culture, very interesting aspect. As a matter of fact, that might be a very interesting experience for us to look into, because they have emphasized the Aborigine culture in such a remarkable way. As a matter of fact, when I did my tour of Australia, and I've been to the entire eastern coast from Cairns up north, where the mangroves meet the coral reef region, and a lot of people say, oh, they do meet? I say, yes, I have a picture that proves that they do meet. At a certain spot, the mangrove trees of the really meet Cairns, all the way the northeastern tip of Australia. And I went all the way down to Melbourne and then backtracked to Sydney, and it was my last night in Sydney. And the following day I was leaving, it was a day week. So I'm checking in my hotel room, and the hotel, forgive me, I forgot the name, it's on the rock, you know, overlooking the Opera House and all of that, marvelous place. And a very historic hotel. And I was checking in the hotel, and the lady said, oh, sir, I noticed you are leaving tomorrow. Well, it's a shame that you can't stay over the weekend. So, and this is amazing, and this, at least my personal experience, every time you meet an Australian, they want to sell Australia to you. Huh? So building a brand starts within. Huh? A very powerful brand, nation branding campaign got to start from within. Huh? Every citizen is an ambassador of the brand. So, the mistake that a lot of nation branding initiatives fall into, that nation branding is an external love affair with others, to tell the world about who we are, and it's our chance to brag. Big mistake. The nation brand got to start from within. The nation brand can be very powerful, and Australia is a perfect example. Every Australian I met is really an ambassador of their nation brand, in their behavior, in their conduct, in their friendliness. Such a remarkable way. At least it touched me. Yeah? I'm sure other nations have comparable degrees and experiences and examples of that. But they are truly ambassadors of their brand, and they know how to treat a foreign guest. Okay? They never ask you, when are you leaving Australia? They never ask you that question. I've been asked that question so many times. I wouldn't mention details, but you know, how long are you going to be here? When are you leaving? You know, that sort of thing. You know, and these people say, can you stay a little longer? I'm serious. Can you be with us a little longer? And they really, and this lady was so persuasive. She said, sir, please consider staying a weekend. And I'm booked. It's not like I want to sell you another room. But look, what we have over the weekend, I thought this is a downtown of a city. She said, no, no, that's not America. This is a living city. Yeah? The weekend is full of activities. And she started naming the activities that's going to happen over the weekend. So I told her, well, I have one problem here. I'm flying Qantas Airlines tomorrow, and my flight is booked, confirmed, and I don't want to pay any penalties. She said, well, I might be able to help. I said, how? She said, well, I have a girlfriend that works in the agency down the street. If you're really interested, I can call her and she can make an exception and she can extend your stay, whatever, how long you want to stay. I said, okay, if you can persuade your girlfriend to extend the stay for me, not only that they extended my stay, they even upgraded my flight back. Where does that happen? Huh? Some countries just get out of here. Okay, I have too many to worry about. Treating customers, treating visitors as they are the most precious guests coming to your way. That's very important here. And I ended up staying that weekend, and I really never regretted staying that weekend because it gave me a chance to attend a performance in the Sydney Opera House. She said, have you been at the Sydney Opera House? I said, yeah, I took pictures. And she said, no, sir, have you been inside? I said, well, you know, she said, please go inside. It's really unlike any other experience. So what I'm basically saying, the brand ambassadors are the hotel keeper, the receptionist, the bell captain, the taxi driver, everybody that touches you, every touch point, every point of contact throughout the travel experience that the guest goes through got to be a brand ambassador. So your campaign got to start from within in order to be effective. That's my message here. And Australians are really good at that. Here is their campaign. Their objective is to increase experience, maximize experience here, seekers' intentions to travel to Australia here by engaging them in a conversation. Let's talk. It's not like, listen to me. Yeah? Because branding as listen to me, this is who I am, this is how I exist, one-way voice, that's not effective branding. Branding is dialogue. Can we talk? Can we talk over a cup of coffee here? And it really shows a very interesting story. The ad goes, a very stressed, apparently must be a single mom, returning to her apartment, very stressed after a long day, puts her little girl to bed, goes to sleep, and flashback about work-related stressful day. Yeah? Boss shouting, deadlines, all these flashback, one after the other. And all of a sudden, she goes to bed. And all of a sudden, she dreams that she is resurrected with her little girl in a beach in Australia. And she is talking to a seashell. And then, real experience, Australia, walkabout. Walking her girl through the Aborigines, through the beach communities, through the fishing villages, through the zoo, through watching birds, and all of a sudden she wakes up. Got to go to Australia. You know, what a remarkable journey in a 60-second spot. So talk to me, walk with me, know how I live and how I want to escape all of that. And I thought that was a very effective campaign in that respect. So you want to be in such a most unusual places here, having a dinner on a tree. How do you like that, romantic dinner? Okay. So what does the nation brand strategy communicate? We are in the communication business. Sorry, not just PR. Sorry, again. We are in the communication business, which means integrated communication. How our channels of communication are interrelated and rebuilding on synchronized messages throughout the globe, through multimedia, is very effective in that respect. The tourist destination, the cities, the trade, the programs, the cultural aspect, all of the key stakeholders, the tangible, the intangible aspects of the brand are very important here. So how do we manage our brand portfolio here? Here are some examples of how brand extensions can be managed. Poland, ecotourism, and this is an example here of how the nation brand and a sub-brand relationship. Africa, South Africa, and the FIFA. I think you are going to be watching a lot of football over the summer. Brand alliances, co-branding, Korea and Japan, World Cup, you know. So do nation brands have brand alliances? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Regional branding, the Caribbean islands, advertising alliances, Malaysia, Truly Asia, a fantastic campaign that won a lot of mileage for Malaysia as a result of that. So what we are saying, you know, think of your brand not just as me and who I am, but it is as us and as the experience and how we talk to people about and share this experience